Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com with you for another Pittsburgh Steelers postgame podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers remain perfect. The perfect Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a lot. But they're 9-0. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 10 at Heinz Field, 36-10, a shellacking in every sense of the word. I actually think it should have been a lot worse. I don't even know if that really indicates how dominant the Steelers were. Nonetheless, the Steelers win, and we're here to talk about it. Joining me, as always, Bryan Anthony Davis, our podcast producer. What's up, Bryan? How's it going?
I am fantastic, and isn't it fitting that I am going to quote Ed Rooney, another Rooney, and say 9 times. The Steelers have won 9 times in 2020.
Absolutely. There you go, Dave Schofield, other co-editor. What's up, Dave? How you doing?
Jeff, you're my best friend. I love you, man. Oh, sorry. That's how drunk I would have been if I would have taken a drink every time Jonathan Vilma said he was drafted in the same draft class as Ben Roethlisberger. Oh, my goodness, did that get old? Sorry. I'm doing great. It's great to have a game where you can look at things like that and have fun with them because you're not stressed out about the Steelers pulling out the victory.
There's a couple things that really bother me. Like I hate the fabricated. They are watching every time Ben Roethlisberger goes to the ground. And
his elbow.
Oh, he touched his elbow. Oh my gosh! Did you see he grimaced as he got tackled? Well, he's just getting tackled by a 300-pound lineman, and I would probably grimace too. Just saying. Or the Jonathan Vilma's second game with the Steelers, and he still can't pronounce Randy Fichtner's name. Fichtner or whatever, Fichtner or something. I don't know.
Everybody,
come on, man.
Fichtner. It drives me crazy.
But hey, if we're talking about this stuff right after the game, then it was a good game. And that's exactly what it was for the Steelers. Before we get into the X's and O's, the numbers, and all that stuff, let's get our knee-jerk reactions. This is how we always start this post-game podcast. Bryan, we'll start with you. What was your knee-jerk reaction to this win?
It was a complete game, despite the running game, but it was a complete game. The defense showed up. They started off in typical Steeler fashion, needed time to rev up, but the questions have been answered. This is a legitimate team.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't know it yet, the Dave Schofield, knee-jerk reactions. What do you think?
Not a single third down conversion given up by this defense. That's what I mean. Other than that one drive where they had the really big play on a busted coverage and they gave up a fourth down touchdown because they changed in their young guys in on that personnel. They weren't all exactly, they should have called timeout because they weren't ready for the play and gave up that touchdown. Other than that, it was a dominating performance by the defense. When you look at it as a whole, it didn't seem like they were dominating every single play. They just continued to do their job the whole game.
I'll say this, and I'll say it again. What's scary about this Steelers team, at least offensively, is that we still haven't seen them play to their potential yet. That's what's scary. I mean, when you think about how they dominated this game, Isaac Aguilera puts $5 in the tip jar. He said what I was just going to say. Great win. Can we run the ball efficiently? It's something the Steelers are going to have to. I don't want to say have to in the NFL now. You can throw your way to wins, but at the same time, you want that other half of the offense to be able to be effective. And it wasn't. Couldn't run the ball. We'll talk about that. But this offense can still be better. I'm not saying it was bad. No. 36 points is 36 points. 4 touchdowns for Ben Roethlisberger's 4 touchdowns. But with that said, my goodness, it's scary to think what this offense could look like when they're clicking on all cylinders, when there aren't wide receiver drops and things like that. So, yeah, awesome, dominating performance of the defense by far. I think when you, like you said, that one drive and then the fake punt, there's like the only plays that they had. Yeah. I will say Jesse Bates should have had a pick 6, but still he plays defense for a reason. All right, let's get.
He had to go up really high to get
that
ball. He had to go up really high.
Well, let's get right into it. A lot of people were saying in the live chat, "Hey, it was a relaxing game." I'm not going to say. I'm going to say that there are no relaxing games for me with the Steelers. Just have a lot to do during the game. But at the same, and then when DirecTV goes out on me in the middle of it because of the storm, I'm ready to kill someone. My kids are running around like,
that storm was enormous. That was a big storm that rolled through.
I missed the Deontay Johnson touchdown. I had to watch it back on replay. I found it online and watched. I was like, goodness gracious. Anyways, Let's get to X Eddie B. I think is this a Canuck buck? 5 Canuck bucks. He said, "Hey, let's never run the ball again, and Ben should never practice." I'm not going to go that far, but let's talk about one Benjamin Todd. Oh, I did miss that one. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Sean Manahan, $2. Big Ben for MVP. Let's talk about one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. So we always start why he is the straw which stirs the drink. Roethlisberger finishes 27 for 46, 333 yards, a 7.2 average, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, no sacks for the second straight game, a 110.1 rating. He single-handedly won me my FanDuel league this week, so thank you very much. I just want to throw that in there. They're in the FanDuel league with me. So, guys, let's grade out Benjamin Todd. Will you? Brian, we'll start with you.
I'm giving BTR an A+.
Nate, you want to explain anything? Talk about him, or is
the guy didn't practice all week. He doesn't need to practice. I mean, like we were joking about, keep him home. No, here's the thing. Ben was on today. Of course, I'm sure, he could have been better, but 4 touchdown passes, that's an A+. He single-handedly won that game for the Steelers because the running game wasn't going, and when Ben needed it to go, and when Ben needed to convert, Ben converted. They scored a lot today.
Yeah. Dave Schofield, go ahead. Ben.
Well, I do have to say that I do have the evidence of what my lineup would have been had I not got scared of the wind and took Ben and Juju out of my lineup. I kept them in a different league, and I would have crushed in this league. I would have won by 15 points. But I didn't. So, Jeff, you're welcome. I was just trying to, you haven't done very well this year. So
my second win. How many wins do you have?
4.
Okay.
Thank you. So anyway, it's an A+. Do you want to know why it's an A+? Because he finished the game on the bench. Yep. Anytime you can finish the game on the bench for the right reasons, we got to put that out there. But that's an A+ performance.
I agree. A+ for Ben Roethlisberger. He coulda, woulda, shoulda. Yeah, the pass that Bates could have got his hands on, that would have been a blemish, but he didn't have a blemish. Looked good. He had some drops. I think I counted at least 3 passes that wide receivers should have caught. Maybe even 4 if you count the throw to Juju Smith-Schuster in the end zone. Yeah, I don't know if that, maybe 4, but at least 3 drops. So his numbers could have been even better. So we'll see. Let's get to some, what do we call these Australian dollars?
Dingo dollars.
Dingo dollars. That's right. Mark Davison, who's one of our blokes from down under. He said, so what time do we play the Bengals? Geez, Louise, 9-0. Here you go. I like that. Like that a lot. Snowman. Oh, wrong one. Gosh darn it.
I got it.
Yikes. You got to throw it up there, please.
Yep.
Snowman, $5. We appreciate that, Snowman. He said, hey, don't have to have a heart transplant this week. Yahoo. The Yahoo is right. Yes. Congratulations to all of us for not having a heart attack this week. Grayson Brown, he gives us $4.99. Like I said, get right game. But seriously, the run plays were suspect. Run defense slowly getting back on track. Need better play calls. And they also need Mike Hilton back in the lineup too. It was good to see Tyson Aluwalu back. Even when Tyson Aluwalu came back, Isaiah Buggs was inactive because of his ankle probably. So they still are mismatching their defensive front. So keep that in mind as well. Let's talk about the running game, shall we? It was not very good. They ran the ball a total of 20 times. James Conner, 13 carries for 36 yards, 22.8 yard average, and a long of 16. Benny Snell, a 3 for 12. Everything else was rather mundane. Guys, let's grade the running game. This is probably the one area that we're like, yeesh, not good. Brian, go ahead.
They really did not do much to help the Steelers' cause, so I have to go C-.
Okay. Any explanation there, or just
yeah, you know what? I've seen on the live chat, and I've heard people talking about how bad Connor is. I still think that the offensive line is not getting him holes. That jet sweep, that's not Connor, but the jet sweep is not working all the time. They're figuring it out. Heck, Jonathan Vilma figured it out. He's like, they can't do that all the time. And I mean, it works a little bit, but when you go to the well too often, you lose.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Dave, what would you grade the running game today?
Oh, it's not good. I'm gonna say C-, probably. I mean, here's the thing. You had a couple decent runs in there. I mean, I would say almost 70% of Connor's runs or yards were on 2 runs. He busted out a couple of them. 70% of Connor. And okay, now I don't hear myself again.
I don't know what that was.
I have no idea what that was either. So, but it really was the blocking. When you look at it, it was the blocking. They would have had more to the run game if there wouldn't have been a hold that called back Snell's one decent run there at the end when they were just handing it off. But I mean, it's not I had a good way to say this before. The Steelers have gone up against two of the bottom 5 rush defenses the last 2 weeks and have not been able to run the ball. And you say, oh, that's a problem. Double yoy. But the problem is when teams that are struggling to stop the run, when they see someone like Pittsburgh who struggles to run the ball and that, in my opinion, completely tips their hand of when and where they're running the ball, these are the type of games that they look at as get-right games for them to get back on track of their run defense, just like this was a get-right game for the Steelers overall. So something's got to be done there. I think a lot of it has to do with scheme, personnel, and you're basically letting the other team know where you're running it. And early in the season, it worked because you were doing a good job moving the line, but the line's not getting the push up front. The big boys aren't getting it done as much either. It's just it's a group effort with that one.
See, this is tough because we always go we go to grading the offensive line. And if I'm grading the line in terms of run blocking, put it that way, it's a poor grade. I'm going to give the running game a D because it just was not good enough. And it was so bad. You could actually see the Steelers in third and short situations. They're going back to Todd Haley electing to throw the ball instead of trying to run it. And you want an offense that if worst case scenario, you should be able to get a short yardage situation, whether it's third or fourth down, does not matter. I'm going to give them a D. It just is not good enough. If they want to be considered legit, and I mean, Super Bowl contenders can beat anyone, which I already think they are, but the offense has to get that running game to accompany the passing game. Because if they can run the ball, it's only going to open things up for the passing game even more. So we have to keep that in mind too. Highway to 7, $1.99 says Ben's most complete game ever. Great pressure throws. Absolutely. I think it was a touchdown to Juju where he climbed the pocket. That's a play that Mason Rudolph or Devlin Hodges never made last year, where they just step up. And it's a thing of beauty, to be honest with you. We had a couple bigger donations here. Guillermo gives us $4.99. He says, what do you guys think about the future for quarterback? I see Dobbs more active on the sidelines. I really would like to see him have some snaps.
Can I take this one?
Sure, go for it.
The Steelers are 9-0. Forget about the future quarterback. Enjoy 2020. You know who can deal with that? The Steelers in March.
But okay, so he did give us money. I will answer it this way: that Mike Tomlin seemed very open to both players if Ben Roethlisberger wasn't able to play today on Sunday. So maybe they're not sold on Mason Rudolph as the guy if that's a possibility. But that's down the road. We appreciate the tip. Michael Clark gives us $4.99. Says, is Johnson AB without the headaches? He's talking about Deontay. Ben loves to target him 10 plus times nearly every game. Some of the after catch moves remind me of AB. Just me. I will say that I'll let Bryan answer this in a second. I will say that I think he's better with the ball in his hands than Antonio Brown ever was. Brown might have better hands, but Deontay Johnson with the ball in his hands in space is unbelievably elusive. It's difficult for one person to bring him down. He had a great first half and then kind of quiet second half, but still, we'll talk about the receivers here in a second. Bryan, what are your thoughts on that comparison with one Mr. Third and Fifth?
I think that's a good comparison because there aren't any headaches. I also agree with you, Jeff, just for the fact that this guy is electric. I think even more electric than Antonio Brown, but Antonio Brown definitely has better hands. I would love to see, now be careful how I say this. I'd like to see Deontay Johnson slow down, not in speed, but slow down and make sure he's catching the ball. I think he's dropping the ball a little way too much. He worries me sometimes, but he is definitely, he's definitely a guy that Ben is targeting more and more. You're seeing him target Claypool more and more. So he is definitely in the equation. They've got a 3-headed monster and a 4th in James Washington if he could ever, get on the field.
Yeah, no, you're right. Jerry Hill gives us $2. Says, "What do you think the Steelers' final record will be?" I don't know. Guys, thoughts here?
I like to just go with.
One game
I'll say
at a
their
time.
final record will be 10-0 after next week. They got to win.
Yeah, there you go. Brian, you want to take a stab at it?
I'm going to go with the Jeff Hartman answer, and I'm going to say 19-0.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's what I'm going for right now. Realistically, there could be a couple losses in there, but right now they're 9-0 and they're a special team.
Let me just remind all of our listeners, because we have a lot of people, we have 450 people in the live chat right now. There's a lot of people that listen to this podcast, that it's going to be worth it if the Steelers go on a run for you to find our YouTube channel, because if they finish 16-0, Brian Davis will shave a mohawk into his head. And this is on tape. Like, he cannot back out of this. I mean, it's just fact. So I think if you look at the upcoming schedule, he's probably sweating a little bit because you might have to do it. I have the Clippers to do it, obviously, but I mean, geez, it's going to be tough. I mean, you don't want to do that, do you, Brian? I mean, you'd love them to go 16-0, but you don't want a mohawk.
I wouldn't care about the mohawk. I'm shameless self-promotion. I don't care. But if you go back and listen to the actual
here we
tape,
go.
It was Mike Hilton 16 sacks.
No, the 16 sacks was a porn stash, I thought. Was 10
sacks was a porn stash. But you know what? We can go ahead. We can go ahead with that.
I want to find the tape. That's what
honestly, I don't think the mohawk was 16-0. I don't, but I can't remember either.
I don't think you were on the show yet, Dave. I think this is the one you joined us late.
So you know what? I mean, Donald's saying Bad has already tried to back out of it. I don't back out. I don't welch on bets. I've worn Capitals jerseys. I've had Ravens decals on my car because I never welch on a bet. That's
all right. We'll just take it one game at a time. All right. We'll take it one game at a time. I'll check on that in the meantime. Highway to 7 gives us $4.99. Says it seemed like the Bengals took a lot from the Dallas game to defend the run. They were daring us to beat them throwing. Wind and all, Ben shredded them. Yeah, and Mike Tomlin said that in his post-game press conference, that they were really loading the box, saying, hey, if you're going to beat us, you're going to do it through the air, and that's a mistake against Ben Roethlisberger. That's pretty silly, if you ask me. We had another one here. Let me find it. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Brad Jewett, Cincy, some stepchilds, and always will be. Love you 3 and everyone in the live chat. Thanks, Brad. We appreciate that. Cincinnati's kind of like that little brother. Who would you say is the bigger little brother, Cleveland or Cincinnati? Dave, what do you think?
The bigger little brother.
Meaning that guy that's always around but never wins.
They're from Ohio. They're the twin little brothers.
All right, here we go. Sean Manahan. This is a good segue. $2. Thank you, Sean. He says Steelers wide receiver core, the best group in the NFL. Let's talk about the receivers a little bit. First, do you guys think that this is the best top to bottom unit in the NFL?
Absolutely.
Dave?
Depends on if you're talking depth, because I think they are the deepest wide receiver group.
Well, this is top to bottom. NFL. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I mean,
so that because of their depth, yes, I don't think they're like, if you're only looking at the top 2 guys of every team, then no, that's not where they're going to be. But if you're looking at everything, then yes, because of the fantastic depth they have.
It was crazy to see the graphic that Fox put up on the screen where it showed touchdown catches by all these different guys. You know, Claypool had 6 at the time. I think Deontay Johnson had maybe 5. Juju had 5 and 4 and 3. Ebron had a couple. I mean, it was insane.
It's 3 for Ebron and 3 for Washington.
Yeah. Let's talk about these guys. Deontay Johnson leads the team with 6 catches for 116 yards on 11 targets. Wow. 19.3 average, 1 touchdown along a 46. And then Juju Smith-Schuster, 9 catches for 77 yards, 8.6 average. He had a touchdown, 24-yard long, 13 targets. Chase Claypool, 4 catches on 10 targets, 56 yards, 2 touchdowns, and along a 15. Ebron, 2 for 38. James Washington, 2 for 30. James Conner, 2 for 12. And Ray McLeod, 2 for 4. Gentlemen, let's grade out the receiving core. We'll start with you, Brian.
Absolutely an A once again. I could go A+ on these guys because look, everywhere you go, if somebody is covered, James Washington could be a number 1 receiver 1 week. Diontae Johnson, you have the potential for 5 number 1 receivers if you include Ebron in there every single week. It's not the days of AB with guys like Kobe Hamilton and Sammy Coates and Eli Rogers in there helping out, looking for scraps. This is why the running game is not too much of a concern right now, because Ben's going to throw it. Everybody knows Ben's going to throw it. They can't stop it. They can only hope to contain it. And that's exactly what's happening here. This is one of the best receiving cores I've ever seen. And I've seen a Steeler receiving core with Jim Smith, John Stallworth, and Lynn Swann. You throw in Eric Ebron, who Ben could have completed 3 more balls to Eric Ebron, and it wasn't Ebron's fault. Ebron had a fantastic game as well. And if what's the guy, Jesse Bates, if he doesn't make a fantastic play and almost take that pick 6, that was going to be a 6. If that ball is caught by the offense or the defense, that's a touchdown most likely.
Yeah.
So they have true weapons. I've never seen this many weapons. Like I said, somebody goes out in a game. We've seen Diontae Johnson go out in a game and nobody was like, oh no, we're done, because somebody steps up on that team. There's no ego. They're a band of brothers, those receivers, along with Ben Roethlisberger. I really love this group.
All right, Dave, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like what Bryan said. Good. I mean,
what's your grade?
They didn't necessarily catch every single ball thrown their way, but you can't catch every ball thrown your way. Well, I mean, you can, but if you have that expectation, you're going to be disappointed. If you're that guy that breaks down film and expects the quarterback to make the exact perfect read and the exact perfect throw on every play, then you're never going to be able to enjoy football. And it's the same kind of thing with the receivers. They're going to catch them most of the time. Jeff missed it live. That Diontae Johnson touchdown, I tell you, he was just turning to look and Ben just had put the ball in his hands. He had no choice but to catch that ball. That was just crazy. For these young guys to not have their quarterback all week and to still be on the same page with him the way they were, yeah, let's give them an A+ for that.
I'm going to give them an A, just a solid A. The drops, I'd love to see them clean it up a little bit. I know that, yes, they won 36-10. I know, yes, maybe I'm nitpicking, and that's fine. Say what you want. I'll give them an A. Great numbers. Diontae Johnson looked explosive. How anybody in the NFL gives him a 10-yard cushion, I have no idea. It was the play, I think, in the second quarter maybe, where the Bengals defender was literally 10 to 11 yards off. Roethlisberger probably gave him some type of hand signal, tosses it to him, and he has an easy first down. I mean, I don't get it. Nonetheless.
Split the defenders, too.
Yeah, well.
For the first down. It was crazy.
I would love for someone, and I'm sure there's some website or something that keeps track of this, how many times he makes a defender miss. I mean, it seems like every time he touches the football, he's at least making one person miss. So, all right. We all give him A's there. That's pretty good. Let's talk about the offensive line again. They do let Roethlisberger throws for 333. He did not get sacked, but the running game was dreadful. Guys, if we're grading the offensive line, how are you grading it? I'll go with you, Bryan.
This is so hard because the bottom line is they won the game by the score of 36-10. The running game isn't going, but they still won the game. They kept Ben Roethlisberger clean. They kept Ben Roethlisberger upright and healthy. I've got to go ahead and, despite the poor running game, because that could be a combination of the running backs and the offensive line, I could go B- here.
Okay. I think it's a fair grade. Dave, what about you?
I'm going to go B. I think they did a great job in pass protection. Like you say, the no sacks right there tells you a lot, especially as often as they threw the ball. I don't know that it's all on them for the running game. I think it is a big combination of stuff. I think it's them. I think the play calling of the running game is not putting them in a very good situation, them or the runner. So it's a lot of things, but you got to bring it down because guess what? Even if it wasn't even if it's not the best play calling with the run game, you can come off and drive guys off the line. And I didn't see them drive guys off the line until Mason Rudolph was taking the snaps. Then it seemed like that was the first time all game I actually saw them get a little bit of a push. So that's the biggest concern that I have is when it's a run play, you've got to move the line of scrimmage, and they're not. That's the only thing keeping them from an A.
I'm going to give them an A, and you're probably shocked after I ridiculed the running game. But here's the difference. To me, when you throw the ball 46 times and don't give up a sack, I mean, think about that. Think about that. But let's go a step further now. Let's look at the defensive. How many quarterback hits did the Cincinnati Bengals have? 8. Okay? You gave up 8 hits. You didn't give up a sack. That is really, really good football on the offensive line. And we've said this for years. This offensive line was built to protect Ben Roethlisberger. They're not the dominant road grader offensive line that's going to run downhill and just bury you to death. But at the same time, my goodness, I feel like this offensive line from the pass protecting him, they've only surrendered 10 sacks in 9 games. I think so, if my notes are correct.
Yep,
yeah.
Because it was 10 coming into the game.
10. That's all
I was afraid they were going to give a sack on that bad snap, went to hand it off to Connor, couldn't hand it off. Ben kept it, got up to the line of scrimmage. I was afraid they were going to call that a sack, but instead they called it a run for 0 yards. So,
yeah.
Because that wouldn't have been on the offensive line. That
No.
was, other than the snap.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, guys, before we go into our first break here, let's talk about offensive game balls for someone not named Ben Roethlisberger. Let's make it challenging, okay? Not named Ben. We know Benjamin Todd would get a game ball from everyone under the sun that watched the game. Bryan, who's your offensive game ball going to and why?
Since it's not BTR, I am going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he is the leader of that band. He is the guy that is, somebody called him Hines Ward 2.0. He is a very unselfish player. He's the leader. And he's the guy that makes everything work for everybody else as well. Because you know what? When they aren't going to him, everybody else is open.
Let me ask you guys a question real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up Juju. They find a way to keep him next year? He wants to stay in Pittsburgh. He really does. I honestly believe that. At the same time, he's going to want market value. Did the Steelers find a way to bring him back next year? Dave, we'll start with you. Let you answer that first.
Yeah. Can I answer one thing real quick in the live chat? A lot of people were asking about Kevin Dotson. He went on the COVID list yesterday. He was not active for the game. He's not even on the 53-man roster. A lot of people trying to figure out where he was, if he was playing. He couldn't have been playing.
They promoted Antoine Brooks for him.
Yes, they did. So anyway, back to the whole thing. Seattle has to know. What was it again?
Do you think they'll find a way to keep Juju next year?
You've got to do everything you can to find a way. But there's going to be a point where if it's too much, you can't offer the farm, and the neighbor's farm and the farm in 10 years, but you're going to do everything you can to keep him. It really depends on their side.
Bryan Anthony Davis, what do you think about that?
There's so many things that can happen. They're going to try hard to keep either Bud Dupree or Juju Smith-Schuster. They really are. They're going to try to keep one of them. They might not be able to keep one of them, but if anybody is going to find coins in the cushions, it's Omar Khan and it's Kevin Colbert. And we talked about it before when there was no way they were going to sign a single guy in free agency. Everybody said it. I'm like, you know what? I think they'll sign a guy like Wisniewski. They're going to sign somebody else. They're going to find a way. With what money? They will find money. I don't know if they can, but it goes a long way when I just talked about how unselfish a guy like Juju is. If he is a big picture guy and could see his career going forward with not breaking the bank and being the number one paid wide receiver, then you know what? He might be the guy that would do it. I wouldn't see an Antonio Brown doing that. I wouldn't see other guys that need to have that banner. Number one paid guy. He is probably the one guy that I would think that would stick around, but you never know.
I think he seems, for as young as he is, I think he's very realistic. He knows he's not going to be able to get, like, for instance, DK Metcalf might hit free agency eventually and say, I want to be the guy. But at the same time, I don't think that's Juju Smith-Schuster. But here's why I think he'll stay. And here's why I think he might take a little bit less. I don't think he needs the NFL money to make him a lot of money. For instance, he's getting a ton of advertisements, whether it was like Pizza Hut last year. He is
money.
He's sponsored by he's sponsored by a gaming team. Like he's a part of like video game. Trust me, this guy's making a lot of money that isn't NFL money. And so if the Steelers can give him what they feel is fair market value, and he says, I'm looking at guys like Mike Wallace, let's hear Emmanuel Sanders, even early in his career, looking at even someone that didn't get a chance to stay for whatever reason, Marcus Wheaton. He might say, I want to stay here because it's not the same everywhere. And so a little sidebar there. We'll see. We'll talk about it. Go ahead, Bryan, or whoever wants to go. Doesn't matter.
I'll go ahead real quick. And I know I'm opening up a can of worms here. Emmanuel Sanders was not that awesome in Pittsburgh.
No, not at all.
Juju is a whole lot better than he was. He had so many drops. He was never a number one receiver here. Juju is, like I said, he's not selfish. He is working on a brand, and a lot of his brand is staying in Pittsburgh.
That's what I was going to say. If he wants to build the brand, they need to work together and say, let's keep you here and in a good situation. Do you really think you can do better somewhere else? And it could even be that Juju is the kind of guy that's like, as long as Ben's here, I want to stay.
That's what I'm saying? That's the caveat.
Then try to keep him here through Ben, and then say, go from there. But we'll let you keep building your brand here with the good thing you have going on with Ben. So
if that's the caveat, though, that I talked about how he doesn't need top money. He might say to Ben Roethlisberger, look, man, I'm staying here as long as you're here. You got 2 more years. You got 3 more years left in you. Like, what's the deal? Because because he knew what it was like in 2019 without Ben there. So, but I digress. Let's go to Shield 91. He put $5 in the tip jar. And this is for you, Dave. He said, what do you use for your game stats? Trying to get more stat geeky these days. My box score is just ESPN's. Dave, you can give him where you get your information.
I don't like it on my desktop. I use Yahoo, and I also use, believe it or not, I use the Steelers app where I go into their schedule and I go into their drives and into their stats and stuff there. That's what I use during the game and on game day. But after game, the day after the game, when everything gets uploaded to look at everything, that's where it's Pro Football Reference. But you do need a subscription for that now.
Yeah. All right.
For their big stats.
Dave, let's go to your
offensive game ball.
Yes.
Offensive game ball. I am going to go with, since he can't be Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, and Bryan took my answer of Juju Smith-Schuster, which is okay. I'm going to say Deontay Johnson, because not just because he went over the 100 yards, which was a really big deal for the Steelers to get that. I'm not sure if Bryan's asleep or frozen right now. Anyway, I think he might be frozen, but also that long pass, what was it? 40 some third,
46 to Deontay.
Yeah. The long one to Deontay early in the game, that did a lot for the offense. That opened up a lot. And with Ben threw other deep balls, but he's the one who made the adjustment and brought it in.
Yeah. Deontay Johnson's a good one. I'm actually going to go with Chase Claypool. I said this.
I left you that one.
Thank you. He too helped me win my fantasy league this week. But so I'm looking at Claypool, and so he's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. No one would expect him to be. He has some drops. Absolutely, he has some drops. But Roethlisberger trusts him a lot. He goes back to him a lot. And even though his stats were not mind-blowing today, let's read those again. 4 for 56. He got targeted 10 times, but he had 2 touchdowns. The second touchdown was really a combat catch. I love to see him go in and battle for it.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are 14 of those yards on that reverse? Because that started off with a pass. It started off with a tip pass to Ray to then reverse around. And I can't figure out if that's where they put those yards or not. They definitely didn't put them in rushing, because
Claypool probably had. I mean, maybe they give him a pass there, but I mean, he had a couple nice third down receptions that are probably about 12 to 13 yards. So,
Drew the one big PI to get him down close. Yeah.
he's a DPI magnet because he's so big, and he fights back for the ball. Then and you know that he and Ben are going to connect on a couple of these deep passes sooner or later.
And if you can get the ball to James Washington, man, good luck tackling that guy. I mean, that's the thing that I see with him is he's just going to power through guys too. Gotta love these receivers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And Pappy W says they showed it as a pass on game day. So there you go. That would equate to those 56 yards. Yeah. So there you go. Okay, very good. So we're going to take a break right here. If you're on YouTube, we're not going anywhere. We'll be right back. If you're listening in audio, make sure you go over and check out part 2. Will Bryan Anthony Davis join us? I don't know. You'll have to wait and find out. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers post-game podcast. I'm Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. With me, as always, the other co-editor, Dave Schofield, and Shazam! Bryan Anthony Davis, the podcast producer, is back. Brian's back, and we're talking defense. We're going to talk defense, game balls, as well as final thoughts, all that good stuff that we always break down here in second part of the show. And before we go any further, those that are on YouTube, thank you very much for all the donations. Thank you for the likes and the subscribing to the channel. If you don't know we had a YouTube channel, go to youtube.com and search BTSC Steelers Radio. And you can get our podcast anywhere where you get your podcast. Just search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. Subscribe so that you don't miss a thing. All right. Now, let's go to the stats here for the defensive side of the football. We'll start with the rush defense, or the front seven, as we call it. Let's hear. The Bengals they rushed for 139 yards total. Perrine had 48 on 7 carries. Sean Williams had 1 for 39. That was the
punt that goes down into the rushing yards.
I saw 139. I was like, man, that's a lot.
It was 100 otherwise.
Yeah. Gio Bernard 30. Trayvon Williams 22. 139 is a large number. That's not going to help their average. We'll put it that way. So this is a third straight game. Even if you take away the 39-yard fake punt, even if you take that away, it's a third straight game they've surrendered 100 yards or more on the ground. Guys, let's grade out the rush defense. We'll start with you, Brian.
I thought the rush defense was fine because I am not counting that fake punt. That's not really against your rush defense, if you ask me. They're expecting a punt. So what does that put them around 102 yards, giving
100 on the nose.
100 right on the nose.
You know what? I don't care. I thought they were fine. That running game was never really moving the chains for Cincinnati whatsoever. So that's a paper stat. Bring out Lee Flowers, and they were paper 100-yard rushers, if you ask me.
All right. Dave Schofield, agree or disagree?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Hold on. I was trying to add it up here real quick. You do realize that, let's see, so far, that's 22 of those 100 yards came on the last drive when they were just milking the clock.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, if you're talking about it, it was 78 yards is what they gave up.
Yeah.
What it mattered. There was a couple big plays they did bust out at times, but that's the same kind of thing that you're hoping the Steelers running game can get going eventually. So I think the rush defense did a pretty nice job. I'm going to give it an a B plus. Good to stop between an A- or a B plus. Yeah. I'm going to give it a B plus just because the numbers don't look as good, but you can explain why the numbers didn't quite look as good.
I'm going to go with a B because I still feel like they're missing something. I don't know. You know, Mike Tomlin spoke about Avery Williamson, how he was happy he got some physical repetitions in the game today. I don't know if maybe they need to start infusing him a little bit more. I'm not sure what they need to do, but I will say this, that I thought that they meshed well with the Steelers offensively. In other words, when the Steelers offense was putting points on the board, they made the Bengals one-dimensional, and that's what you want. They slowed the run enough that they had to throw. Burrow had to throw to get him back into the game, and therefore that kind of becomes obsolete. So I did say on my Let's Ride Morning podcast earlier or last week, I feel like if they can just be a bend don't break at times, that's fine. You know, protect the end zone. They did a good job of that. They only gave up 1 touchdown and then that garbage field goal at the end. I thought the defense did a great job, and I'll give the rush defense a B. We'll give them a B. Let's get to this super chat while we have a break here. OCams0X says he gives us $4.99. Thank you very much. The Bengals remain the Bungles. Who else would fake a punt trailing by 29 only to almost get their rookie quarterback wrecked in a game that's clearly over? You do have to wonder why you would pull that out of your hat right now in a game that seems to be really out of hand. Why would you pull that out of your hat now? I don't know. Dave, what are your thoughts?
It's because they specifically saw something against the Steelers.
I gotcha.
Although you could also argue, then you should have saved it for the next matchup. Because this isn't like the Cowboys or the Jaguars, where this is your one crack at the Steelers this year. This is your first of two. If they saw something they really liked against the Steelers, why not? And at that point, they almost wanted to see, hey, will it work? Will it not work? Why not at that point? I mean, beats going forward on fourth and forever.
I'm actually glad that it happened to the Steelers in this game because it wasn't at a critical juncture. It was in garbage time, and your special teams now has seen that, and they're going to learn from that. Bryan, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Now they are looking for it. I see where Steelers Pittsburgh calls it a Wang Harbaugh move. It really is. And I love that, and I love that we were able to pen that name here on the post game show. But
no, it's a Wang Harbaugh move if you do it when you're up by that much. That's when it's the Wang move. To me, when you're down, go for it. Sorry. Go ahead, Bryan.
I get that. And I mean, it was no consequence to the Steelers. That's just, like I said, paper running, because that's just 39 yards. And now it gives Pittsburgh something to work on. And they're going to work on something like that. They got caught with their pants down. And this time you get caught with your pants down, you don't get shot in the face. That's the good thing, because usually when you get caught with your pants down, it's a bad thing, and you're running and your pants are around your ankles and it's bad and you might get shot in the face. So the Steelers are fine in the situation. You, like Dave said, man, you took something out of your arsenal that you could have used against them in the second quarter of the next game to really screw up this team. You wasted ammunition.
It's a bungling thing to do. All right, let's get to the let's go to pass rush. We'll go to the pass rush. The Pittsburgh Steelers finished the day with 4 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. But guys, I got to be honest, a tackle for loss, we'll have 6 there. Tackle for loss is 6. Guys, I mean, they didn't blitz a lot. I know that I read Cliff Harris is still a punk. Kevin Smith, who's on our pregame show with Bryan every week, he writes a weekly scouting report. And I always read it because he's a high school head coach. His team's doing really, really well in New Jersey right now. But still, I take a look at seeing what does he think this game is going to kind of resemble. And he thought this was a game where the Steelers would pull out all the stops and just blitz the heck out of Joe Burrow. They didn't. They really, really didn't. They kind of sat back more, were trusting their front four to get home, and they didn't do it a bunch. But at the same time, guys, what do you grade the pass rush? 4 sacks is 4 sacks, but were you happy enough with it? Bryan, we'll start with you.
I would have loved to have seen them put way more pressure on the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. I would have loved to have seen 6 or 7 sacks there, but that's just me being greedy. They played a smart game on defense the whole way. So I'm still going to give them an A because that's a lot of sacks. 4's a good bit of sacks. That's a huge amount of sacks for any other team. For the Steelers, it's average. And that's pretty awesome. What do they have? 36 in 9 games. So they're averaging 4 a game.
30. I'm sorry. Hold on.
That would be 36.
Yep, 36. You're right.
36. So with that being said, you average 28. I mean, you average 4 a game the next 7 games. That's 28.
You get your 64. That's double your 32. So which they had at the midway point. You're exactly right, Bryan.
So there you go. No, I love the defensive game plan. They did it right against this guy.
It surprised me, but it doesn't mean it was the wrong thing to do. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Couple things come into that. One, no Mike Hilton. That's, why tip off some other stuff? You didn't have Mike Hilton. 2, exactly what we said with the whole fake punt. If you're winning the game, you're doing a good job. They can't convert a 3rd down. You knew that the wind was an issue with him throwing anyway. Why throw all these crazy blitzes at him this time when you don't have to? And now you can you can blitz the crap out of him when they play Cincinnati in December, and it won't be that he's seen it already.
It's a good point.
I don't think that's what they did, but that's what I'm going to take out of it.
I am going to give them an A. I thought they did enough, especially in key moments. But just a quick sidebar. You're really starting to see the value of Mike Hilton. Is that not blatantly obvious? We talk about Juju Smith-Schuster. Can they bring him back next year? Mike Hilton, in my opinion, is driving his price up because Cam Sutton's great, but Cam Sutton's not Mike Hilton. He just isn't. We know this. So, guys, I'll ask you the same question I asked for Juju in part one. You think they find a way to sign Mike Hilton to a contract next year? Dave, we'll start with you.
With him missing so much time, you might get a better deal.
Yeah. You see my point, though, with his value, though.
Yeah.
I mean, his value is just.
I don't know that his value is going to be as much, once again, much like we said about Juju, somewhere else. Or is he going to be utilized in the right system somewhere else? That the Steelers are basically, look how important he is to that defense. A lot of their defense and the way they blitz and the way they get after the passer has a lot to do with, it's geared as much around him as just guys like TJ Watt.
You're right. What about you, Brian? Thoughts on Mike Hilton?
I would love to see him keep this guy. They're going to have to keep him or Cam, or they're going to keep one of these guys. You would think that he would be a priority. It's just how much that you have a team that has got a lot of money in their pockets, how much he wants to go to that team. And that's the thing. If they win the Super Bowl, you will see an exodus because guys will make more money because they'll have a chance to leave. There, a lot of people will see what they can do. You know, he's a niche player, though. He really is. He's not your traditional cornerback. He's your slot corner guy. He's against a run. I listen to Dave and I listen to Jeff saying, you know, what's he going to do in another system? He doesn't care because he was an undrafted free agent and he needs to get his money. Yeah. And he has probably put less in his pocket than anybody else here. So, you know what I mean? I know he's been the what was it? The restricted, not the restricted, but the ex-free agent.
He's gotten every tag you can think of.
He was a restricted, exclusive rights.
Exclusive. That's what I was looking for.
Exclusive rights.
No,
he did in the past.
He was. Yes, he was exclusive right. Yeah. Yes, he was exclusive rights the year before last and restricted last year.
Yeah, he's had every tag possible. So yeah, he has to get his money. Yeah. We'll see. Sean Manahan puts $2 in the tip jar. Says the only stat that matters: 9 wins, 0 losses. That is correct. That's a fact, Jack, as Bryan says at the end of his shows. Okay, let's go to the secondary. Secondary, you had Terrell Edmunds and Minkah Fitzpatrick and Cameron Sutton as your top 3 tacklers, with Edmunds having 8, Minkah with 6, Sutton with 5. Sutton had a forced fumble. That was a great play, really turned the titles on T. Higgins. And then also you had some pass defenses. Let's see who had pass defenses. Joe Hayden with 3, Steven Nelson with 1. They had 4, and that was it. Guys, thoughts on the secondary on this game where the team did not surrender a third down conversion? I'll go with Bryan. We've gone in the same way every time.
Yeah. Joe Hayden was absolutely phenomenal in this game. He was playing old school Hayden. They talked about, hey, you're trying to take advantage of a guy like Joe Hayden who's been around a long time. He looked vintage. I really loved the way he played today. Minkah looked good. Edmunds looked good. I thought everybody looked good when you're not giving up third down conversions like that. And you had one play where they went for 54 yards on the pass to T. Higgins, who was, I think, look out. AJ Green's done. T. Higgins, this is his team. You've got Tyler Boyd on that team, and you've got a quarterback. This team's going to be very good. Wasn't their day to day, but you are going to really, when you look at number 85, you're going to be like, oh, because he is that good. But these guys shut them down. They've got a guy named Auden Tate that's pretty good too, as well. You know, they've got a lot of weapons there. They've got a decent tight end in Drew Sample, who hardly did anything as well. Inspired game by that secondary.
Dave, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of like I said before when it came to the overall defenses. You had the one busted, that was obviously, both guys were covering short on that busted play to Higgins. I mean, you could see there was nobody back there except Minka, who was more in the middle of the field. There was no reason for everyone to be pressing up that much. I don't know who it was really on, but you got to straighten those things out. Because in the secondary, one screw up and it's 6 points and you're kicking for another one. So you got to clean that up a little bit. But my goodness, 0 third down conversions. And that's the thing. What are you going to see on third down? You're going to see passes. I don't remember a third down run the whole game. So you're talking about all those third downs being pass plays where they were either incomplete or tackled short. And one other thing I do want to say, and that magic number is 5, and that is 5 targets for AJ Green with 0 receptions. And it's not that he's completely washed up. He is still, he might not be the main guy because they have other good guys, but he is still a good receiver. And they decided we're just going to take him out of the game. And they did. I think the pass defense did great. And for those of you that said, Terrell Edmonds had a good game for once, then you haven't been watching the previous 8 because he's having a very good season. If only he could have come up with the interception on that deflection, it just would have been the icing on the cake for him. But that secondary really is coming together.
Oh, what in the heck happened to AJ Green? That's what I want to know. And can't say it's all the quarterback because they're trying to get him the ball. He just does not look the same. I know he's had toe and foot injuries. Maybe he doesn't look motivated to be there. I'm surprised they've kept him there if they didn't trade him at the deadline or something. But still, I'm going to give the secondary an A. I thought they did a great job. Was really hoping Minka would get to jump a route. I think he was going to. There was a sack on.
He didn't throw it. He didn't throw it. That would have been a pick.
Yeah. If he threw it, he was getting it. But I think the secondary is really coming. It was great to see Joe Hayden. And kudos to Jeffrey Benedict, who is a podcaster here on our Know Your Enemy podcast. He said that Joe Burrow loves to throw the ball to the right side. He said Hayden's going to have a busy day, and he stepped up to the challenge. So kudos to Jeffrey for calling that one for sure. Let's go through here and talk about some of the players that did register sacks. Robert Spillane, who actually Mike Tomlin gave him the nickname Mick. I didn't know that. So I guess the players might call him. I don't know. Who cares? TJ Watt. Why? Because why is it?
There was a back in the 80s. There was a writer, Mickey Spillane. Mm-hmm. And he had a show called Mike Hammer. So it was Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer. So that's why he's calling him Mick.
Okay, very good. So Mick / Spilly gets 1. TJ Watt with 2. Bud Dupree, ESPN gave him 1. I'm shocked they didn't share that with Tuitt. That was a play where they were both there.
You also might see Spillane's get shared with Alualu.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good point. So those numbers, I don't think Watts are going to change at all. He has 2, so that moves his total. What's his total now, Dave? Do you have that number?
9. 9 times.
He's on a good pace. He's on a good pace. I'm still waiting for that game where he gets 3 or 4. I'm still waiting on that.
I thought this might be it. Especially with the Steelers were up by so much. I'm like, all right, go pad your sack stats. That's what I wanted to see. But they got to force. That's good. That's good enough.
Sean Manahan gives us $2 and gives us an update on the Sunday night football game going on right now between the Baltimore Ratbirds and the New England Cheatriots. It is tied up, I guess. The Ratbirds had scored early.
Wangbirds. That's from one of our touchdown under blokes.
There he is. Touchdown under. All right, guys. Let's we gotta do this. Let's do defensive game ball first, and then we do have to talk about special teams. So let's do defense first. Game ball. Bryan, start with you.
I've talked about him earlier. I'm going to stick with it. Joe Hayden had a phenomenal game.
Okay, good one. That's I probably would have gone with Dave. Who do you think?
Just for the spirit of it, I'm going to go Vince Williams. The way he blew up that one.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That on that run play, he crushed it. It seemed like he was all over the place. It seemed like he wanted to be the guy that still came out and made plays, even though he didn't practice all week. I know you could give it to other people with TJ and 2 sacks and all these other stuff. I thought a lot of the defense played well, but for some reason, just on that one play, I want to give some props to Vince Williams.
I'll think out of the box here too. Because we could go with TJ Watt. But I'm going to go with Cam Sutton. The second game in a row that he's forced a fumble.
I think it's the third.
Really? He forced one in Baltimore.
I thought I saw on Twitter that he
forced. Yeah, he forced one in Baltimore.
I saw it on Twitter, but Twitter lies sometimes, so you just don't know.
Still, Cam Sutton. Yeah. I said that the value of Mike Hilton. No. Cam Sutton is providing some value as well. Go ahead, Dave.
What I was going to say about that play where he knocked the ball out that ended up being his best play, it actually started off as probably one of his worst plays of the game. By giving up the reception that he gave up because he shouldn't. That was iffy. But talk about taking a play. That's why you never give up on a play, and taking a play that started off not too well in your favor and making it turn into your own personal highlight reel. Gotta love it.
Well, and that can go for both of the Steelers' takeaways today. In Ola Adeniyi came from behind on the punt return. Didn't quit on the play. And Erickson coughs up the football. Those are just hustle plays. Those are things that you have to have that inside you to want to just keep driving it after the play. But the Steelers do get 2 takeaways. They don't turn it over. So that plus minus number goes even further north. Now they're +9. Boy, that 9 keeps coming back. 9-0, 9 times. Okay, go ahead, Bryan.
I got to ask a question. This is probably a good question for Dave. Why was that? It was another Adeniyi play that when the guy was fumbling the ball around in the end zone and never officially downed it and got cracked. Why is that not a safety?
I at first thought it was too. I didn't look up the rule or anything, but I'm fairly certain what it is you have to have possession of the ball outside of the end zone before in order and then go back into the end zone for it to be a safety. The ball did hit off of him, but he didn't force the ball into the end zone. That's my understanding of it, was because he didn't have possession. Now, you would say, well, what about a punt? Wouldn't a punt be the same thing? Would it be? No. The difference with a punt is then it would have been a live ball. A kickoff's a live ball the whole time anyway. So you didn't have to hit off him to be live. So because he didn't have possession first outside of the end zone is why. That's my understanding.
It's they were very definitive when they called that touchback. They didn't gather together. The side judge was like, no, that's a touchback. So I'm sure we'll get some clarification on that. All right. Very good. I do want to say, before we get to our final thoughts here, I got to give a shout out to Jordan Berry. As much as I hate the guy, as much as I bash him in these shows and on my Let's Ride podcast, I think he had probably the best game of his career, from top to bottom today. Just looking at his numbers, he did punt the ball a lot, 7 punts. He had an average of 49.3. He had 1 touchback. He pinned him inside the 10 several times. Inside the 20 was registered 4. Long punt of 62. That's the type of punting performance I talk about when I say where you can have a bad offensive series and your punter is going to bail you out with a nice long kick, not shanking it. To be honest with you, he hasn't really shanked one since he's been back. He had a couple short ones, but I thought he's been playing well since he returned. You guys, if you want to talk about Jordan Berry, you can. That's just a quick little sidebar. Dave, anything?
I mean, and on the touchback, it almost seemed like they didn't care. I mean, he boomed it into the end zone. It was one of those things of, let's not let him return it. They can have it at 20.
Bryan, thoughts on the Aussie?
No, I thought he was very good, and I thought he did really well. He had a pretty good game today.
Yeah. Shout out to him. All right. Let's go to final thoughts and wrap up this show. Let's go with Dave.
Oh, I have to give my final thoughts first.
Yeah.
So, okay. This was what we wanted to see last week. And it's funny because I was with my game picks. I was a week off. I was saying, oh, yes, I'm going to, everything about me last week said, don't take the big point spread. The Steelers aren't going to cover. And I did listen to myself. So this week I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I said, I'll probably get it backwards, which was great. I should have known coming home. The wind helped. Everything kind of went in the Steelers' favor. Still not a perfect game, but they played well in the first half. They played well in the second half. Yes, you're like, oh, could they get more on these offensive drives at times? Absolutely. But you want to know what? They scored 36 points.
Yeah,
they did. They put up 36. And if they would have kicked the other extra point, there's your 37, Great job all around. And anytime you can keep a team from converting on third down, my goodness, that's a dominating stat. You don't understand what that does to a game. That means you are forcing a team to either go for it or punt. that many times in a game. That's fantastic. I felt it was a much more balanced attack by offense and defense, both doing well. Obviously not run and pass and offense. So it's the Steelers still have stuff to work on, winning correct. And let's on to Jacksonville.
There you go. Bryan Anthony Davis, final thoughts.
This team is 9-0. And this is a special team. I know I say that every single week. You kind of wanted to make a statement this week because everybody was talking about, I heard one of my buddies say that this is the worst 8-0 team they've ever seen going into this game in the history of football. I'm like, no, come on. Remember, other teams are going to struggle. You're not going to win every single week. But the way the Steelers are made up, you actually feel like they have an opportunity to win every single week. They're not dominant, but today they were dominant. They completely dominated this team, and they could have won this team by so much more. As Jeff Hartman likes to say all the time, that they have not played their A game yet. So when this team finally puts together their A game, look out, because they are playing some fantastic football now. The only problem you have is you're in 2020 where there's going to be a lot of top-heavy teams. You've got a team with one loss right behind you. You've got a couple 2-loss teams not too far away either.
Very good. Yeah, I agree. Sean Manahan had given us $2. Said Pittsburgh's 9-0, Casey's 8-1, and that kind of ties in with my final thoughts, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers are scoreboard watching, but for all the right reasons. They are the ones that have developed a lead and are now saying, well, how much distance do we have between us and everyone else? The Kansas City Chiefs don't look like they're going anywhere, and that's fine. They are also in a very tough division in the AFC West. But the Baltimore Ravens, who are playing right now, that game has not been concluded at the time that this was recording. If they were to somehow lose in New England, my gosh, then they have to go to Tennessee, and then they have Pittsburgh on Thursday. Pittsburgh Steelers are taking care of their own business. All the scoreboard watching that's being done is typically with fans, and that's when it's fun. You just say, hey, what do they got to do to lock up a top seed? What do they have to do to lock up the division? It's going to be a fun down the stretch. But here we go, 9-0. Pittsburgh Steelers win again. I don't even know what to say. No one's ever been through this. No one's ever been through this. I never know. I was walking upstairs with my laptop. I was like, gosh, they win again. Like this. Whatever you're doing out there that you're superstitious, don't change a freaking thing. Okay? Don't change a freaking thing. I'm superstitious. Very superstitious. Go ahead, Bryan.
I got a brand new chair, a recliner, in week, like the off week. I mean, I was supposed to get it for Father's Day. It took a while to come in. I have not sat in it during a game yet because I have been in the exact same spot on my couch. I said to my wife, I want to sit in my chair. She's like, you can't. I'm like, I know, I'm not going to touch that chair.
I got to just $1.99 from Brad. He says, or I'm not sure if I said that correctly. I'm sorry. But he said, how about that man, Ray? He should have 3 touchdowns this season, and he has none. I'm sitting there, my kids now yell with me. They go, Ray.
Right.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that's it for this show. We appreciate everyone that watched live on YouTube and for checking us out on our podcast platform, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure BehindTheSteelCurtain.com is your one-stop shop for all things Steelers. We're going to have everything covered for you coming off this game and preparing you for the upcoming game in Jacksonville. We will be back after that Jaguars game, 1 p.m. kickoff. Thank goodness for that. And so make sure you check out all of our stuff this week, and we'll be back next week, hopefully, talking about a 10-0 Steelers team. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you later.